What?
Hello everyone and welcome to Musicalifornia. About 10 years ago, Los Angeles experienced a rebirth of its local music scene. In essence, it was an aftershock to Britain's punk explosion. Many of the first generation of bands that came out of that era no longer exist, while others developed new sounds. Today we're going to look at some groups that emerged out of that exciting time to see how they and their music have changed. Featured on this special report are the heavy new sounds of TSOL, the Cruzados, formerly known as the Plugz, the earthy rock of the Knitters, and their very close friends, X.
Oh, I can still remember a couple of years ago when the smoke and flame from our name was a burning house alone.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll used to be the credo of devoted fans and musicians who felt life was to be lived for the moment. But that credo is heard less and less as rock artists start spreading the gospel of restraint. 2 years ago, it occurred to a record company executive that a good way to fight teenage drug abuse would be to have rock stars speak out against drugs, publicly. So RAD, the Rock Against Drugs campaign, was started.
I'll tell you what, drugs is not a part of my everyday routine, it's not everyday fun, it's not good for you. All right, so listen, think twice before you do drugs because there ain't no winners out there doing it.
Ultimately, 20 public service announcements featuring rock idols from the 60s through the 80s were produced. And to make sure it got to the right audience, the American cable network MTV agreed to donate millions of dollars worth of airtime.
Hey, don't get me wrong, I still party with the best of them, but now I do it clean. You know, I'm on top of everything I do.
Probably one of the most dramatic spots developed was this one by Steve Jones, a musician with a tragic history of drug abuse.
Hi, my name's Steve Jones. I used to play guitar with a band called the Sex Pistols. A good friend of mine, Sid Vicious, died from drugs. I nearly died from drugs. Drugs suck.
If anyone can speak about the folly of drug abuse, Steve Jones can. Guitarist for the infamous Sex Pistols, Steve came into the music world as a young man searching for an identity. Punk music was part of that search. Yet with the demise of the Pistols, he became bored and turned to drugs. Now at 33 and drug-free, Steve has a unique perspective on the punk music and movement he helped create.
I think it just gave everyone a good kick up the arse, you know. I didn't think it... Now it's kind of negative, but at the time I didn't think it was negative, you know. We didn't even mean to play the way we did, it's just that we couldn't play very well, and it just happened, you know.
Something else that happened is that, free of the burden of drug addiction, Steve Jones has blossomed as a musician and writer. Besides contributing to Iggy Pop's and Andy Taylor's last records, Steve has released his own solo LP called Mercy. Needless to say, the sound is a far cry from his punk days.
Hanging on to hell as well. You might find someone else.
And a lot of people get disappointed when they hear my record or they see me play, you know, because they expect me to be spitting on stage and throwing things at them and playing all Sex Pistols songs, you know.
Where is the love I've lost?
Now, as he promotes his new sound, he's also intent on busting false notions about drugs.
It's a big myth, drugs, you know. People say, oh, they get more creative when they're high. It's total bullshit. You're much better creative when you're straight, you know. All that, you know, that was a thing of the 60s, you know. Take drugs and everything's wonderful. That's total crap. Drugs suck.
When punk was new to Los Angeles, there was one name that seemed synonymous with the LA scene. In fact, it wasn't even a word, just a letter, X.
All the toys were red and black and the boys had two. Just got a head and a nigger and a Joe. Every Mexican they gave a lot of shit. Homosexual and they got a she had to get out.
Get out!
Get out.
Get out!
Yeah.
1980 was a milestone year for rock and roll in Los Angeles. It marked the debut of LA's seminal punk band X and their first LP entitled, appropriately enough, Los Angeles. Now don't get us wrong, there were other young punkish rock bands who contributed to the local music scene and would even rise to nationwide fame, but X remains a unique influence. Their songs spoke about life in the city with a poetic realism. They were at once adolescently aggressive, but musically mature and sophisticated, and their audience spanned from 13-year-old angry street kids to college intellectuals to highbrow artists. This Musicalifornia footage, capturing a 1987 performance, illustrates how 10 years after their formation, X still delivers their trademark raw, speedy performances. But times change, and the depth of an artist is tested in their ability and desire to change also. Not just react, but remain independent and true to their artistry. And that's one way of looking at X's evolution into the Knitters.
That's a sound I know you'd understand. 'Cause I'm not waiting for you to come home. 'Cause I know that may never come true. When it's cold at dawn, and you're so far gone, I still miss someone like you. When it's cold at dawn, and you're so far gone, I still miss.
Exene told us why she and John Doe, fans of country and folk music at the time they formed X, decided to form a punk rock group instead of a country band.
I think we were trying to get away from the mellow sounds, you know, and do something that was more loud and hard and scary. Because people then, if you did country music then, they probably would have liked it, and then that would have defeated the whole purpose of doing it. Now it's a little bit more, it's like Bob Dylan going electric in reverse. Did you ask John that question? I wonder if he said that.
I just come from Baltimore, Exene just come from Florida, and we all needed a big change. We needed to block out all of the musical history that we had known in order to start something new. And then after you've settled yourself into starting something new, then you can go back to your musical history and pull parts of that out to incorporate in your music.
Surprise, surprise, there's a band on stage. Surprise, surprise, I'm in a bar. Surprise, surprise, it's my turn to play. I'm overworked and overpaid. I drive to work in a rented bus, 500 miles or more each day, just so that you can get a look at us and figure out if we're worth what you pay.
Too many potential friends, too many bands to defend. Over 60,000 miles I traveled to drink more beer than Al Capone bottled. Yes, he bottled.
One of the special aspects to X's transition into the Knitters is that they revel in rearranging folksy Knitters tunes into booming X songs and giving fans a real freedom of choice dilemma.
Well, I remember war.
is 1979 footage of Tito Lariva's first band, the Plugz, another of LA's early punk bands. If you think the sound is quirky, amateurish, and obnoxious, that's because much of early LA punk was, but all for a good reason.
The punk scene just sort of revitalized the whole original rock attitude, and I think people have come around to, you know, to like that again. And that maybe it's commercial now, but I think it's just, you know, it's just, we're a real band. And if you keep doing it enough, you sort of just, you change, you know, because everything changes, the time changes. And fortunately, we didn't just do that all the way, you know, because you have to grow, you know, you can't just always be the same.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The Plugz did grow by searching for a more mature sound. At one point, they even experimented with bringing keyboards and a horn section into the band. Then, in 1983, Tito finally came across the songs and sound he felt were just right. And by changing their name, Tito declared the birth of a new band, the Cruzados.
As I walk to the top of the hill to look down on my town, I hear this monkey behind my back. He says he's out and bound. I'm not the man that I thought I was. Never robbed with faith. Start the first back and go back. Hell, baby, and it's not the last ride I take. Kick the dust and look ahead. Crank up my Indian bone. Dressed in old leather, riding white lights. I'm headed nowhere I know. Not the man that I thought I was. A rebel rock of faith. Not the first bag of gold I held, baby. Not the last ride I take. I can feel the wind kiss my head with sweet lips forever. I can feel the road on my wheels taking me where I wanna go.
The letters TSOL stand for True Sounds of Liberty, and also for one of Los Angeles' most prolific bands. Formed in 1979, TSOL was as punk and political as LA bands got in the early 80s. Yet, like X and the Plugz, they were never interested in staying the same or developing a formula. By releasing 8 albums in as many years, TSOL put itself under pressure to change, even when it meant losing a loyal punk audience that expected one sound but got another.
punk rock is what we thought we were doing. And basically punk rock was young rock. You know, that's all it really was, you know. It was just adolescent rock. That we wanted to always be was a, you know, a rock and roll band, and hardcore in the sense of being just a really good rock band, down to the core of rock and roll, you know. And basically we're just an American rock band now, but not like any of the spandex stuff you see, and not like any of the John Cougar stuff.
Not like heavy metal rock.
Yeah, we're a real street level rock and roll band.
This song, performed for Musicalifornia, is called Hit and Run and is from TSOL's latest album of the same name. It represents the newest, and some would say most accessible sound of TSOL today. Thanks for dropping by Musicalifornia today. Tune in next time and get a real dose of Southern comfort when we spotlight the sounds of the New South with Guadalcanal Diary.
Black smoke rolling out broken bones. Something came close in the dead of night. Found him in the dark when he was all alone. Dead eyes. Dead eyes.
Until then, here's one more from the Knitters. So long.
They're all been lost in jail, crowded 52 room. There's 20 rats in this cage of a world, and the women know their place. They sit home and write letters, then they visit once a year, where they both just sit there and stare, see how we are. Gotta keep bars in between us, See how we are. We only sing about it once in every 20 years. See how we are, oh, see how we are. Now there are 7 kinds of coke, 500 kinds of cigarettes. This freedom of choice in the USA drives everybody crazy. Down in Acapulco, well, they don't give a damn. Back inside chicklets with no shoes on their feet. See how we are. Hey man, what's in it for me? See how we are. We only sing about it once in every 20 years. See how we are. Oh, see how we are. Well, this morning, the alarm rang at noon, and I'm trying to write this letter to you about how much I care and why I just can't be there to dry your back and comb your hair. Night in a nice spot where things ain't so hot. My friend said I met a bar and I'm in love. I said, oh really? What's this one's name? She said his first name is Homeboy. I said, could his last name be Trouble? See how we are. Hey girl, I wouldn't trust you as far as I can throw you. See how we are. We only sing about it once in every 20 years. See how we are. Oh, see how we are. Yeah, see how we are. Now that highway is coming through, so you all gotta move. This bottom road ain't no fun at all. 'Cause now flyers and rock houses and grape flavored rock poison are the new trinity for the so-called community. See how we are. Gotta keep bars on all our windows. See how we are. We only sing about it once in every 20 years. See how we are.